The time is now for the Dr. Bob Sports Podcast. I am Tanner. I am our head of analytics. And for the past 7 years, I've been working alongside Bob, originating our NFL and college basketball bets. And today, as always, I'm joined by our digital media specialist, Grant. How are we doing on this Thanksgiving morning?
We're doing good, Tan. We are in cold Minnesota right now, but everything's good. Couldn't be happier. So just ready to get the podcast going. We got some good football today, got good football tomorrow, good football Sunday. So just another big week of the NFL.
Yeah, well, let's start with that Monday nighter that I'm sure you didn't enjoy watching, and let's go ahead and get into our first segment.
Yeah, that was torture. But our first segment here is where we grade the scriptwriters and how they did for episode 11 of the NFL season. I mean, that Chiefs and Eagles game, that was a tough one to watch for me.
Yeah, the story of the season for Patrick Mahomes and Kansas City's offense has just been those dropped passes from the receivers. You could argue that they'd be undefeated if there just weren't some crucial drops in the fourth quarter from all sorts, basically everyone, including Travis Kelce. He had some crucial drops last week. In fact, the Chiefs had 5 drop last week, and the big one against the Eagles was that one from Marquez Valdez-Scantling that would have given them the lead with 2 minutes remaining.
Yeah, the Chiefs offense is averaging a league low 5.6 points per game in the second half. Is there any hope for Chiefs fans out there? I mean, are we just going to continue doing the same thing week after week, or are we going to turn it on here?
Well, short term, I think there is hope, particularly this week. I mean, I just think this Las Vegas defense provides the Chiefs with a solid opportunity to rebound. The Raiders are 25th in success rate allowed to tight ends, so you know Travis Kelce is in line for a big game here. And, you know, Mahomes' second option, the best player he's had behind Kelce has been slot wide receiver Rashee Rice, who's actually 17th in the NFL in EPA per target as a rookie, and he'll have a favorable matchup on the inside against Nate Hobbs, who ranks 27th out of 28 qualifying nickelbacks in yards per cover snap allowed in the slot.
All right, well, hoping for a bounce back there, but let's shift it over to our next segment where we've got the injury watch. And the Bengals season looks like it might be doomed as Joe Burrow is going to be done for the season. Is there any hope with Jake Browning here?
I don't know. I mean, Browning, he's been bouncing around for a while, and he really has never gotten a shot, presumably because he's not that good. I mean, he's averaging just 2.9 yards per pass play. And the other thing that is he's not going to be able to match, certainly he won't be able to match Burrow's passing prowess, but Burrow was also had the third lowest PFF turnover worthy play rate this year. And so that was, you know, hiding or masking some of the Bengals offensive deficiencies we saw earlier this year. It was like, at least he wasn't turning the ball over and giving other teams short fields to work with. But I think Browning is certainly going to have a turnover worthy play rate higher than that. And, you know, worse for Browning is that T. Higgins might not suit up this week. So it'll be just Jamar Chase. And Jamar Chase, you know, he's got a bit of a difficult matchup this week. The Steelers' rookie cornerback, Joey Porter, is 11th in yards per cover snap allowed, and he's been, you know, kind of shadowing the opposing team's best wide receivers. So ranking 11th in that category against top wide receivers is very impressive for the rookie. And I don't know. I mean, Browning, he's going to see a lot of collapsing pockets with Cameron Hayward coming up the middle against Cordell Volson, who ranks 4th worst in pass blocking efficiency among guards.
All right. Well, we see the Patriots are playing some quarterback games here, but whoever is their quarterback will have their starting left tackle back, which should be huge for this week.
Yeah, Trent Brown missed that game in Germany, and him coming back is going to be crucial to limit edge rusher Kayvon Thibodeau, who had 8 pressures last week. And I mean, on Wednesday, Mac Jones was asked if he was starting, and he said, "I hope so. That's the plan, I think." So I don't know. It's probably going to be Mac Jones. If it's Bailey Zappi, okay. But regardless of who it is, I don't think there's going to be a major adjustment for the Patriots offense. I mean, Mac has just made terrible play after terrible play in crucial situations all season.
Yeah, I don't know how I feel about playing quarterback games with your own quarterback. Maybe to throw the other team off here, but that is pretty crazy by Bill. But let's look at the Panthers. I mean, their O-line situation is looking like an absolute disaster right now.
Yeah. I mean, they released guard Calvin Throckmorton, and then their other guard, Austin Corbett, went down with a left knee injury last week. So that was a terrible time to release Throckmorton because he would have presumably been a starter for them. And now they've got, rookie guard Chandler Zavala out there who surrendered 3 sacks last week and is surrendering a 14% pressure rate on the year. And that's not good news as Titans interior Jeffrey Simmons ranks 9th in pass rushing efficiency. And I mean, Carolina's interior offensive line is already responsible for 65% of the pressures they've given up this year. And now the interior offensive line is clearly worse than they've been on the season thus far. And by the way, Throckmorton got picked up for the Titans. So keep your eye out for a Calvin Throckmorton revenge game this Sunday.
What a revenge game that will be. But let's shift it over to our next segment. We've got Public Opinion Talk with me. We had another great weekend of football. The public was firing away with their hot takes, but in the fourth quarter of the week 2 game against Cleveland, Steelers fans broke out in that Fire Canada chant. And 2 months later, their wish was finally granted. In 44 games with Canada as the offensive coordinator and play caller, the Steelers never reached 400 yards of total offense, and they averaged only 17.9 points per game in his 2+ seasons in this role. What do you think about this one?
Well, I think it was definitely time. His play calling was nearly 3.5 points worse than average by our metrics. So there's room for improvement. And one of the places that I would like to see improvement is throwing over the middle of the field. Just 25% of Pickett's attempts this season have been thrown beyond the line of scrimmage between the numbers. And league-wide average on that is 39% of attempts are in that area. So hopefully, new play caller Mike Sullivan will throw over the middle of the field more often and just design guys open. I feel like the Steelers' only offense is throwing jump balls to George Pickens. He has the third most frequent target rate into tight coverage. Almost a third of his throws have been into tight coverage this year. So hopefully they'll actually scheme guys open in the middle of the field. That's step 1 for the new play caller. And step 2 is to get Jaylen Warren more involved. He's leading the NFL, averaging 6.2 yards per run. And the Bengals defense, this is the right week to get going because the Bengals defense is surrendering a 43% rush success rate. That's 28th in the league.
Yeah, it feels like Tomlin kind of had to make this move considering what's on the stakes for Sunday.
Yeah, well, this game is huge. So basically, the Steelers get up to around a 75% chance of making the playoffs if they can beat the Bengals without Joe Burrow this week. But they would fall to less than 50% chance to make the playoffs if they lose to Jake Browning. So they need this game.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I think Steelers fans are jumping for joy to have Canada gone. I think they're probably feeling pretty confident right now. But
I think the players are too.
Yeah. 100%. We just saw the Raiders when they got a coaching change. That team looked completely different for a couple of weeks. So this could be really helpful for them. But let's shift it over to our next segment where we've got stock up, stock down. Whose stock are you buying right now?
Well, I can't believe I'm saying this because they averaged negative 0.15 EPA per play last week. But I think the Browns offense has a real chance to light up the scoreboard on Sunday. And by that, I mean, for their standards, light up the scoreboard for this Browns offense is scoring 20 points. So, you look at the matchup, Cleveland's offense really wants to press 2 levers with DTR at quarterback. And I think both of those levers have a favorable matchup in this game. So they want to get yards on the ground to take pressure off the rookie quarterback. And they want to throw to tight end David Njoku, who had 15 targets last week when Dorian Thompson-Robinson started against the Steelers. The Broncos are bad in both of those categories. So Denver is 29th in rush success rate allowed. They have allowed a league high 4.8 yards per carry the last 3 weeks. So I think certainly Cleveland's ground game should be able to get something going. And then the Broncos are 31st in success rate allowed to tight ends. And then starting safety Kareem Jackson just got suspended. And backup safety PJ Locke is likely out with an ankle injury. So huge opening for David Njoku as a tight end with, them down to their third string safety. So I think, Dorian Thompson-Robinson, he should have clean pockets because right guard Wyatt Teller ranks 9th in pass blocking efficiency, and he'll shut down Zach Allen, who's 10th in pressures for interior defenders. So Thompson-Robinson should be able to get the ball to Njoku, playing on the play action game after they, kind of establish a solid ground game. I think this Cleveland offense could get to 20 points, which, like I said earlier, is lighting up the scoreboard by their standards.
Yeah, when you have that defense, I think all you need is probably 20 points. But who's got their stock trended down this week?
Well, I think this is the high point for Tommy DeVito. His stock is going to trend down from here. The Giants put up 31 points in their upset win last week, but that was in large part due to their 6 takeaways. 6 takeaways is insane. And DeVito got his first win despite taking 9 sacks. I mean, he's been holding onto the ball too long ever since college, and he has a 22% sack rate this season. That's insane, and he's going to be thoroughly shut down by Bill Belichick's scheme. The Patriots have the 4th highest blitz rate and the 4th highest man coverage rate, and the Giants have struggled against the blitz and man coverage this year. They're 26th comparatively versus the blitz, and they're 31st, or sorry, they had the other way around. They're 31st comparatively against the blitz and 26th comparatively against man coverage this season. So it's not a good matchup for DeVito, and we know that Belichick is specialized in shutting down rookie quarterbacks his entire career.
Yeah, do you think Saquon's going to be able to help him at all this week?
Well, that was a key piece of how they put up 31 points last week. So Barkley averaged a season high 5.9 yards per carry against the Commanders, but I just don't think he's going to be able to shoulder some of the load off of DeVito because New England's defense is 2nd in rush success rate allowed. So I don't know. I think it's going to be an uphill slog for the Giants to get to 10 points this week.
All right, well, let's shift it over to our next segment where we've got our Black Friday bet.
Yeah, we got some feedback about giving my opinion on games, and Bob gave us the all clear to discuss one bet we send out to clients each week. So we're going to go ahead and start a new segment on the podcast this week.
Awesome. I think the people are going to love that one. And this week, it looks like we have a 1-star best bet on under 41 in the Miami versus New York Jets game. Is this about Tim Boyle here?
Well, Tim Boyle has the worst college credentials of any NFL quarterback I've ever seen. In 3 seasons at Connecticut, he couldn't even hold the starting job. And he completed just 48% of his passes, 4.5 yards per attempt. And then he moved on to play at Eastern Kentucky in 2017, and they went 4-7. So I can't really believe that Tim Boyle is in the NFL. I mean, I know he's good friends with Aaron Rodgers, and that might be just what it was. You know, he would have come into the year as the 3rd string quarterback, and maybe Aaron just wanted him in the quarterback's room. But it's kind of insane that Tim Boyle is still in the NFL. And I think that he's definitely going to be worse than Zach Wilson was. And, you know, obviously Zach Wilson has been awful, but I just don't know how Tim Boyle can be better than him. But it's worth noting that we would have bet under here, even with Zach Wilson under center for this game. And we're not actually going to make an adjustment so far because this was a coach's decision by New York's offense. So, you know, usually if the coach makes a decision, we're going to say that he knows more because he's seen, you know, in practice and everything. So we're just going to say Tim Boyle and Zach Wilson are the exact same, even though it's probably likely that Boyle is worse. And for what it's worth, Wilson averaging 4.9 yards per pass play for his career, Boyle averaging 4.8 yards per pass play since he started taking snaps in 2019.
Yeah, how's Boyle's supported cast looking?
Well, Jets tackle Mekhi Becton might be out with an ankle sprain. And that leaves Laken Tomlinson as the only remaining starter on New York's offensive line from week 1. And he ranks 45th in pass blocking efficiency out of just 46 qualifying guards this season. So he's not really the guy you want left on the offensive line from week 1. And Jets backup rookie tackle Carter Warren surrendered 5 pressures last week, filling in for Becton, and I just don't think Boyle's going to have clean pockets on Friday as Miami's defense is the 6th highest pressure rate in the NFL.
Yeah, I don't think it's going to help that the back end of this Dolphins defense is so much better with Pro Bowl Jalen Ramsey back. I mean, he missed the first 2 months of the season. He came back, and that guy is flying around.
Yeah, I mean, the Dolphins are 7th in EPA per dropback allowed since Ramsey came back. And Ramsey coming back on the back end gives Vic Fangio increased confidence in devoting more attention to the run. And that has helped the rush defense as well. So it's kind of crazy how one player just, you know, on one side of the field can affect so many other aspects of Miami's defense. But the Dolphins are 3rd in rush success rate allowed since Ramsey came back. So I think New York's offense is going to be completely out of options in this game. I mean, really, their one saving grace this season has been Breece Hall ranking 5th in EPA per target among running backs. But the Dolphins are 3rd in pass success rate allowed to running backs. So I just don't think they're going to be able to move the ball with Tim Boyle at all on Friday.
What do you think we're going to see from the Dolphins offense this week?
Well, Miami's offense might have some similar challenges to New York in the sense that they'll have a backup offensive lineman out there and no options in the screen game to slow down the pass rush. Now, the Dolphins are targeting running back sixth most in the NFL, but the Jets are seventh in pass success rate allowed to running backs. And, Miami starting guard Isaiah Wynn ranked second in pass blocking efficiency before going out in week 7 with a quad injury. He's worth a half point to our metrics. So, he's still going to be out. And New York interior defenders Quentin Williams and Quentin Jefferson are the strength of this pass rush. They've combined for 60 pressures this season. So I just don't think Tua is going to have a ton of clean pockets to throw from either.
Well, I think the real question here, how are the Jets going to contain Tyreek and Waddle?
Yeah, I mean, that really is where it starts with this Miami offense. I think the Jets are at least as well suited as any defense in the NFL to contain those two guys, with cornerback DJ Reed and Sauce Gardner ranking 6th and 8th respectively in yards per cover snap allowed. I mean, two of the best outside cornerbacks in the NFL. So I think that they'll be able to at least limit those guys. They'll take away the screen game. You'll probably get a few sacks up the interior, collapse the pockets. I think this game is going to have a real hard time getting to 40 points. Our model predicts 38.6 points.
All right. Love it. Bet the people will like to have that free bet this week, but let's shift it over to our next segment. We've got our DraftKings player of the slate. And last week you had Kyler Murray, who was well worth his $6,100. He scored 22.5 fantasy points. What do you got lined up for us this week?
This week, Puka Nacua at 7,600. So Nacua, 11th in EPA per target this year, and he's going to be lining up across from Marco Wilson, who ranks 85th out of 86 qualifying cornerbacks in yards per cover snap allowed. So it's already a favorable matchup for Nacua, but I think it's a favorable matchup for the Rams passing offense in general. So we know this Rams team is night and day depending on if they're facing an elite pass rush or not, because they rank 25th in pass blocking efficiency. But Stafford crushes when he's kept clean, and the Cardinals only rank 29th in pressure rate. So I think Stafford will be kept clean this week, and he's one of 8 qualifying quarterbacks this season to average 8 yards per pass play when kept clean. The other thing is Arizona has the 6th highest zone rate in the NFL, and the Rams are averaging 39% more yards per attempt against zone than man coverage this season. That's the 5th largest gap in the league.
I love that one. I mean, just to add on a little bit there, I mean, we saw Kupp get banged up last week too, so who knows if he's going to be a little slower out of the gates here. Coach should be open. But let's shift over to our next segment. We've got the weather of the week. What are you seeing out there?
Well, the Eagles might be playing in their second straight rain game after beating the Chiefs last Monday night. That is, not necessarily ideal. They had a pretty good matchup in the passing game with concussions for Bills cornerback Dane Jackson and nickelback Taron Johnson, who's 5th in yards per cover snap allowed in the slot. But it might be more of a grounded pound style again for the Eagles if it's wet. I mean, they did win that game in Arrowhead, averaging just 4.6 yards per pass play in Hurts's first game without Dallas Goedert. So I don't know. I feel like the weather really dictates what the Eagles are going to try and do on offense this week.
All right, well, let's shift it over to our Sunday night primetime preview. We've got an AFC battle between the Baltimore Ravens and the Los Angeles Chargers. It's been a tale of 2 seasons for these teams, and the Chargers are coming off of another awful loss. What did you see from them last week?
Well, it's been a tale of 2 seasons for these teams record-wise. Obviously, the Ravens are looking a lot better there, but I think in some ways these teams have been similar in that they've found a way to snatch defeat out of the jaws of victory in all sorts of ways this season. I mean, the Ravens, could easily be undefeated. They've had a greater than 80% win probability in every game they played this year, and the Chargers, they've been finding a new way to lose for the last decade. So last week was no different. I mean, Herbert averaged 6.4 yards per pass play in Green Bay, but it should have been even better. The Chargers dropped a league high 6 passes against the Packers, and the big one was rookie wide receiver Quentin Johnson on that final drive that would have put the Chargers in field goal range. He really hasn't hit, and I mean, they must just be kicking themselves for taking him over Jordan Addison. Johnson's 0.75 yards per route run is 8th worst in the NFL, and the Chargers' really only option with Palmer and Mike Williams out has been Keenan Allen, and he's been a stud this year. 4th in EPA per target, but he'll likely be shut down on the inside by safety Kyle Hamilton, who is allowing a league-low 0.39 yards per slot cover snap.
Yeah, this Ravens defense has looked really good all year. Are the Chargers even going to be able to handle them up front?
Well, Jadeveon Clowney, 8th in pressures, and I think he is going to wreak havoc across from right tackle Trey Pipkins, who's 9th worst in pass blocking efficiency. So Herbert's going to have to take matters into his own hands again. Last week, Herbert didn't have anyone open, so he rushed for 73 yards, and I think we could see Herbert scrambling a lot more than usual again on Sunday night.
Yeah, it looks like this Ravens O-line is trending in the right direction, while the Chargers D-line is not for this week's game.
Yeah, so, I mean, Baltimore backup tackle Patrick McCarry surrendered 4 pressures last game, and the rest of the offensive line combined surrendered 4 pressures. So he clearly was the weak point, which you can expect for Patrick McCarry, being a backup. But it looks like they might get starter Ronnie Stanley back on the field this Sunday, just in time to limit edge defender Khalil Mack, who ranks 12th in pass rushing efficiency. And on the other side, we saw Los Angeles edge rusher Joey Bosa suffered a foot injury. He's on the IR. He's out, but I don't know how much of a difference that's going to make. I mean, before the season, I would have said that Bosa is worth at least a half point, but we've seen his backup, Tuli Tuipulotu, have a 13.6% pressure rate. And Bosa only has a 12.2% pressure rate this year. So the rookie has been excellent this season, and I think he'll be able to fill in for Bosa just fine.
Are you worried about Lamar this week without Mark Andrews out there?
I am really concerned about that for Baltimore's offense. I mean, Mark Andrews is probably the most valuable tight end in the league behind Travis Kelce. He's averaging 0.56 EPA per target. That's insane, averaging over a half point to the Ravens every time they target him. I think he's worth nearly 2 points per game. So that is going to be a massive loss for the Ravens.
All right, well, what do we got for the prop this week? Only good part about that Monday night game was we hit on DeAndre Swift over 16.5 receiving yards.
Yeah, so we'll come back with another primetime prop this week. Lamar Jackson under 27.5 passing attempts. So he's only gone over that number in 4 of his 11 games this year. So already in a vacuum, I think that number's a little bit too high. It probably should be more like 25.5. But then this game, I think they'll especially focus on the ground game against the defenses that likes to use light boxes. And then, we've already mentioned that Andrews is out, but Odell Beckham is also possibly out. So I think the Ravens focus on running the football this week against Staley's defense, and Lamar Jackson will not have 28 passing attempts.
All right, I like it. But I think that will do it for our Week 12 podcast. If you're looking for any more Week 12 content, head over to drbobsports.com, where you'll see all of Bob's college football write-ups as well. And please go ahead, leave us a thumbs up if you're enjoying the content, and we will be back next Friday to review Week 13.